I'm Dick Myers, and with me today is Tom Jarboe, who's a Republican candidate for St. Mary's County Commissioner for Commissioner District 4.
District 1, actually.
Pardon?
It's District 1.
District 1, that's right.
You're just trying to see if I was paying attention.
That's true. And that confuses me sometimes. So you and Merle Evans are running for the seat that's being vacated by Cindy Jones.
That's correct.
Okay, I got you. And a lot of people get it confused, so maybe I just brought up an interesting subject for everyone.
Well, it is interesting because District 1 is kind of split up. It goes from basically Park Hall to Point Lookout and stops, and then it starts again in Callaway and goes to the St. George's Island. So it's an interesting district.
So I know your father, so you're born and raised St. Mary's.
I am.
Your father was also a county commissioner.
That's true.
So, and a very well-known doctor in St. Mary's County. So why did you decide to run for county commissioner?
I decided it was kind of my social responsibility that I need to run this time, Dick. We've got a lot of changes going on in the economy. We live in a county who's shifted from agriculture and aquaculture over the last 3 or 4 decades, and now we are heavily thrust in the defense sector. And what is in the part of retraction right now, of course, is the federal government and the defense sector in particular. So one of the biggest challenges I think our county has is the diversification of the economy. And it's more than just buzzwords. Now more than anything, we really need to look at our economic development for St. Mary's County. Being a business guy, I understand what it takes to start a business, and I understand what's small business friendly and what isn't. We're more likely in this region to grow new business if we encourage entrepreneurship than we are to attract a Fortune 500 company to come down and locate. So if you want to have 900 new jobs in the county, it's easier to get 30 new startups than it is to get one Fortune 500 company to move down to St. Mary's County. So I think we need to foster entrepreneurship and small business growth and development.
So is there also room for diversification for the companies that we already have who are dealing with the base but may be able to also deal with outside the base as well?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things, the strength I think that I bring to the conversation is that I'm very familiar with what technologies we work with that are on the base. And there's actually an office on the base called the Technology Transfer Office that has many patentable inventions that have been created here by some of the local St. Mary's County folks working for the federal government. And those technologies could easily be turned into commercial property, commercial items that could be sold not only here in the United States but abroad. And so I think what we need to do is start thinking a little bit out of the box and not focusing on, when we say let's diversify the economy, don't just immediately focus on tourism, because I mean tourism is an important part of St. Mary's County for sure, but it's not the end all to the issue of getting our economy straight.
Well, so perhaps I should ask you what your background and experience is that would bring you to the table on that very subject.
Okay, so my background is I'm a former Coast Guard guy. I have a master's degree in international business. I've owned 2 companies. First company started 12 years ago, Technology Security Associates. It's a defense contracting company that focuses on weapon systems solutions, the security and the vulnerability testing of the systems, and then the international sales. So my background in particular is the international market. And the other company I started is called Kios. And Kios, it takes off from where TSA stopped with the weapon system sales, and Kios does international sales of all kinds of products and commodities. And Kios is a more commercial-based company, whereas Technology Security Associates is more of the typical company down here that does work with the federal workforce, a contract support services type company. So now I have experience in services, and now I have experience in product. And as I like to tell everyone, as a small business owner, I know how important I think things through on return on investment when I sign the front of a check. So as a politician, I don't just want to be experienced in signing the back of the taxpayer's check. I understand good, smart investments.
So can we be a player in world business as opposed to...
Oh, absolutely. You would be surprised. We have offices in 6 different states, and in the state of Maryland, as an example, I have an office up in the research park near Baltimore. And I deal with Montgomery and Howard and Baltimore counties pretty regularly. And one of the things you see is they invite foreign direct investment, and we see firms from all over the world that come in and do it. We're not ready for that yet down here in St. Mary's County, but it's definitely possible, and a lot has to do with the technologies that we're creating in the autonomous systems plan.
So is the path that the commissioners are on to try to promote economic development? Is that the right path? Are we doing the right things in order to get there?
We're just starting, literally just starting. The biggest accomplishment that I've seen over the last, probably 2 years anyway, is to get that whole conversation going with the University of Maryland systems and have the conversation with the Southern Maryland Higher Education Center to take that third building that they're going to put up and turn that into a University of Maryland campus. Because what that does, Dick, is it brings something to this county we've never had. It brings the capability for incubation and entrepreneur and tech startup. And you're seeing a lot of meetings that are happening in the social media now with agencies like MTech and ICOR that is happening in the communities in the evenings in different businesses in the research park, or the business development park, I should say. And we're trying to expand that into turning the University of Maryland's building into a research center and the whole area around the airport into maybe someday being a research park for high-tech technologies.
So where do we fit into the UAS future?
Well, we're perfectly poised for that. I've heard discussion down here saying, well, we should go cyber. Cyber's in Central Maryland. You're not going to take it. The epicenter of cyber is in Anne Arundel County in Baltimore City. I mean, it's right there. But where we have a strength that no other part of the state does is certainly in autonomous systems. And I shouldn't think we should hold ourselves to unmanned aviation systems. There's also autonomous wheeled systems, underwater systems, surface systems. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that's been developed. And again, a lot of the technologies are right behind the fence and they're open for commercialization. What we need are some entrepreneurs to bring it out and actually do it.
Is there a robot made in my future too to clean my house?
Oh, absolutely. There already is a robot that
probably
can clean your house. I have one in my house, actually.
Do you really?
It's made by a company called iRobot. It's called the Roomba.
Does it do a good job?
No, it always jams up. But it's a start. It's early technology.
It is a
Right.
start. Let's switch subjects and talk a little bit about the schools. Every year at budget time, there's a crisis between the county commissioners and the school board. Is there any way we can get out of that cycle?
Well, first of all, it seems combative. I witnessed it this year, obviously, because I was preparing for my bid to run for county commissioner. So I went to a lot of the meetings and the hearings, and it seems combative. It's just the best word I can come up with it. Instead of trying to come up with a solution, we come up with why we can't do things. Certainly, the budget shortfalls are always an issue. Look, we need. Our jail shouldn't have just been renovated. It should have had an expansion, and we can that. Okay, we need a fourth library. If we don't need it today, we're going to need it in the future. If the kids in our classrooms are going to be competitive in the market space, they need to be brought into the digital environment faster. So the digital classroom is something that's on my mind, is something we could progress to as well. But to go back to it, it's you have to have teachers that are prepared and taught how to do that, and they have to be feeling they're part of the team, the economic development team. And not, on the bad side of things because they're asking for more money. Our police are underpaid, our teachers are underpaid, but we need to start looking at things like how do we drive economic growth in order to get incomes up so we can actually pay the teachers and the firefighters, or not the firefighters here, but the policemen more. And that comes from jobs, growth. And if you continue, we've done it for 20 years to rely on Pax River Naval Air Station to run the majority, 85% of our economy without considering small job opportunity growth. We're not going to have the tax revenues to give the teachers the salaries, to give the policemen the higher increases, to put your jail in or to put the new library. I mean, the fact of the matter is you got to have money to spend it.
Well, the constituents for all those services say that the county has the money now. They have it in their surplus.
It is, and that's one of the things I think is an interesting dialogue, because I won't give out names, because I've certainly been out talking to the rank and file and even some of the unions and members and things like that. And the figures that they offered me on what the actually is are 2 and 3 times what the actual capital reserve fund is. There is some money that was set aside in particular for BRAC infrastructure, and that money should be used for capital improvements. I heard in the springtime a couple folks threw it out, and I think it was just political. Hey, let's just use that money to pay the shortfall for the salary and the healthcare costs. That's, I'm a business guy, and I can tell you that's the worst thing you would ever do is take capital improvement money and try to recolor it into operating budget. So we need to keep that money for infrastructure improvements. And it was an unfortunate spring I had to go through, but I really think that if the commissioners were more open with the school board, and by the way, vice versa, if the commissioners could see with good granularity what their budget really looks like, then I think we could have a better conversation. And then we may not all get what we want, but at least we have faith and trust in each other because we understand what we're dealing with. Right now, I see it, again, very combative. The commissioners want to see more, and the school board's holding back. Commissioners' level of improvement of the budget, they've had maybe down to 6 or 7 lines. They don't get to see how all the money's being spent because that's what the school board keeps. Conversely, the commissioners are not sharing, this is what our capital improvement fund looks like. So, like I said, if you have an open dialogue, I think things would go along a lot smoother, and we wouldn't have the discussion that we see in the news right now, back and forth of us versus them.
Well, the economic development effort is liable to take a while.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So growing business and growing revenue might take a while.
No doubt. It does take some time.
So the constituents for those services are going to have to be patient. Is that
I think they are going to have to be patient. Certainly, I'll be very frank, and this it's my personality. I don't get into gray areas. It's pretty black and white. Capital improvement money needs to be spent on capital improvement, and so we need to look for other ways to maybe look at some federal grant opportunities. One of the things, Dick, is that if you look at bigger picture things instead of, for example, if you will, Kathleen Reef and I talked about the need for a 4th library. So where would we put the 4th library if we were going to do it? The way we do things now at the government level, which I take issue with, is we look for property that's affordable, and then we move everything there. That's exactly the wrong way to do it, in my opinion. We should be designing the community to little communities of interest within the county and making sure that we're putting the infrastructure improvements where we need to balance out the entire county. And we go back to the library and its relationship with the schools. If the schools truly become a digital classroom and we do away with textbooks eventually, and students are given homework, how are they going to do their homework? Well, you have to have some sort of device at home in order to log into the internet. So you have to have the infrastructure of internet speed. You have to have the device in the first place. Is the county or the state going to be issuing laptops to these kids, or are we going to be working on desktops? These are big pictures, but they're all related. So when you talk about placement of a library, what is the library being used nowadays? Our newest library down in Lexington Park, go in there any day.
Yeah.
And it's full of kids behind computer screens. So it's serving that community well. So if we're going to put a 4th library, we need to think about population density and who will need access to that library before you build it. Not a good deal on someone's property. That's the wrong approach.
So now that the Leonardtown Library is being renovated, there should be a discussion about a new library somewhere else
Yes.
other than Leonardtown.
I think it's inevitable. And I had this conversation again with Kathleen Reef and with Dr. Martirano. We had started this discussion about the relationship between the schools and the library. But I think in the next 4 years, whoever the commissioners are, that dialogue is going to happen as to where the 4th library should be located, and then the preliminary design and planning.
Mm-hmm. When we run stories on the BayNet about government, it kind of surprises me how little people understand about how things function, and particularly how things function in St. Mary's County. Is that your observation, too? Is there anything that, if that's true, is there anything as a county commissioner that could be done to maybe improve the dialogue between the commissioners and the community?
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like you asked a question I was very interested in answering. Again, doing part of my research to run as a candidate for the commissioners, I've been to a lot of public hearings. And I have to tell you, a lot of the times the people that are up and having the discussion are complaining about things the commissioners don't have any control over.
Right.
So, but the commissioners never give any response back. It's always a one-sided discussion, and everybody gets up and testifies. And I'm in the back listening and my head screaming, they can't do anything about that. All they can do is take your complaint and go to the state level because it's a state level issue that you're upset about. I think it's, quite frankly, it's just that people aren't out with communications between going both ways with your elected officials. So my biggest takeaway, and certainly it's improved a lot for me because of what I'm trying to run for, but to the general population, get more involved with your elected officials. Ask them if you have an issue, bring it up, and then vice versa. You know, the commissioners have an obligation and a duty to have that conversation with the public and tell them what their roles and responsibilities are and how it plays with the legislature in Annapolis, for example.
I believe you're a leadership Southern Maryland graduate.
Actually, one better than that. I'm not saying anything like that, I guess, but
Okay.
I'm a Leadership Maryland graduate.
Well, I was just thinking that it was...
And well, let me just fall through that. In
Yeah.
2006, I graduated with several other folks from the Tri-County area.
Mhm.
And Leadership Southern Maryland, the program that exists in the county today, is something we set up because we wanted to have a county level training system down here for leadership, and we didn't have one. most of the rest of the state, it's either done by county or region. There's other leadership programs. So LSM, the local program, is our baby, and we're very proud of it.
I was just thinking, it's too bad more people couldn't get maybe a mini version of Leadership Southern Maryland to find out how things really work, because that's a good way to find out.
I agree, and when we went to pitch it to the 3 different county commissioners, because we wanted to make sure it was a regional program and not county specific, almost without exception, the commissioners that we introduced the idea and the concept to all said this would be a good thing to go through before you took public office, because you'd have a better understanding of what's going on. And I will say there are some, we're doing some mini series now with LSM. They're doing a high school program called LEAD, and yeah, it would be good if we could get out and maybe do some short courses. Some other programs in the state do that.
Do you have anything to say about your opponent? Are you running against him, or is this a friendly thing?
Oh, absolutely. So, Merle Evans is a great guy. He's a nice person. I didn't really know him that well until he filed to run, and then we kind of ran into each other at another politician's fundraiser and sat down and had a conversation. And quite frankly, Merle and I pretty much see eye to eye on different things. I would say probably the difference would be in our approach on how to do things. And I can't talk of his approach because I don't know how he would do things, but certainly my approach to do things is to not get fixated on mistakes of the past, but certainly look forward on how we can work together to do things better in the future.
Your experience being in small business, do you think the county is small business friendly, or is there more that needs to be done?
It's not that the county doesn't want to be small business friendly, but there's more to be done. So that's probably the way you ended it is the better statement. I don't think we get, the state itself, Maryland is a non-small business friendly state from a taxation purpose and a lot of other regulation issues. But the county really has no involvement in that. But what we could do better is try to set up where we have a business incubation system down here. And we don't. I mean, Charles County has one, Calvert County has a limited one, St. Mary's County just hasn't. And I know because when I started my first business here 12 years ago, I was kind of lured to maybe go to another county because when you start a new business, the upfront cost can be pretty steep.
Right.
And that's how incubation works the best, because the government helps you to get started and off the ground. And then in return, you keep your business located, for example, in St. Mary's County, and all the tax revenues would flow through. And so it helps the county, but the county has to pay it forward first. And we're not doing it right now.
For folks that would like to get involved in your campaign, do you have a website, you have a Facebook page? How can they get involved?
I have everything. If you Google Tom Jarboe, you'll find all kinds of sites. But my Tom Jarboe for smc.com is my main webpage. So just my first name, Tom, last name, Jarboe, the word FOR, smc.com.
Will you appear as Tom or Thomas on the ballot?
Tom, that was actually funny you should say that. It took me an extra hour and a half when I was registering to vote because my real name is Thomas, but I've been going by Tom since I was young.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on this segment of Countdown to November.
Thank you.